Look at my fancy watch.
Live from the parking lot of Sprouts Market in downtown. No, it's not downtown. It's rural.
It's provincial.
Provincial Sacramento. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm late this morning. We would have been on time, but on our way here, we passed the Catholic orphanage, and it was on fire. And I had to stop.
And make me get out and help them.
No, Constance just stood by the car and wrung her hands as I ran in and saved several of the orphans who were on the second floor, and I got them out in time. But they
oh my God.
They were hysterical because their cat was left inside, and they didn't know where. So once the orphans were safe, I had to run back into, and by then the orphanage was in total flames, and I had to find the key. Please, don't make that noise. Don't make that noise when I'm lying.
I thought I was going to give you a very rambling long thing, which I am going to, but this is a surprise to me.
Well, anyway, afterwards, Constance gave me a big kiss and said, "My hero." And then we would have just been 20 minutes late, but then the news reporters came, and of course they all wanted to interview me, and I said, "No, I'm just a humble clergy."
Simple country metaphysician.
Simple country metaphysician. And I've got a new book coming out, I told them, coming out in May.
Oh, God.
So anyway, please don't make a big thing out of it, okay? Because it's something most anyone would do in my shoes. And Constance is on right now. Good morning, dear.
I'm always on.
You're still a little disheveled from wringing your hands.
Oh, I'm awake after last week I was not awake. I was worn down by Lon's return.
Yes.
Even though it was 3 days later.
Life will be so sweet when I pass away.
No, I would miss him, but not all the time.
Yeah,
not
you'd miss me, not pleasantly.
I know I'd miss you, but not all the day. Just like you wouldn't miss me all the day. Well, it's true. Anyway, no, I'm going to read a story about when he was gone. Actually, I wrote something.
Let's hear it.
It's so crude. I was going to rewrite it, but then I never ever do that.
No.
And I apologize. It's rambling and probably irrelevant because it's what happens to me. I write when sometimes I write helplessly. I pick up the pencil and can't stop when I have my half a cup of coffee.
This is a coffee inspiration.
Yeah, so that you'll have to forgive if it's overly, if it's over the top. And I read lots of different things. Oh, thanks to everyone for the gifts from the desert too. That were wonderful things. And we had a nice class last night very nice class. People participated and paid attention and contributed, and it was nice.
It was a nice class.
And we didn't expect maybe we expected 1 or 2 people because it was
terribly
a waterfall.
Yeah.
It was actually a waterfall for an hour or so. Really.
And the mass roses from Golden Lotus
still on the table in the living room, and they look.
Thank you,
nice
Michael,
still.
and everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, oh God, I forgot what I was going to say. I really did.
Okay.
Well, I'm like you. If you interrupt me, I completely can't. Anyway, I was going to talk about when Lon was gone. I get crazy, and I think I can do things that I can't do when he's there because it takes up my whole day. And there was this branch out in the backyard that I had tied up for 6 months because it was like 18 feet. Oh, first of all, it's 6 feet above the ground where it connects to the big branch. But then it's as thick as my arm, and it's like 18 feet up, and it's leaning directly over about 3 wires that go from the alley to the neighbor's yard. I don't know what kind of wires they are, but it wouldn't be good if that huge branch fell on them. I know that. So I've had it tied up for like 6 months because it's starting to get funny. So I got out my bow saw and my hatchet and 2 ladders. And it was already tied up with 1 rope because that's all the rope I had left because I've had to tie everything down around our house because of wind. So I had 1 rope, and I had like a 6-inch stick at the end of that rope too to twist it a little bit so it'd be tight. So supposedly if it started to crack, it would go slightly a different way, but it wouldn't help a lot because it was still leaning. So I had the 2 ladders, 1 on each side of the tree, and my bow saw, and I started sawing. This is just really funny.
Is that the one that's really long on a pole? The bow saw, or
no? That's a bow saw. It's shaped like a C.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, and then my hatchet.
And your hatchet.
I've always had a hatchet since we were first married.
Yes.
This is my 3rd one, but
I think the first one was an anniversary gift or something.
no, the second one was.
Second one, okay.
First one we got because I had to chop wood for the wood stove.
Yes.
In Oregon when we were hippies because Lon was still in bed. Even then when he was young and not helpless.
I had to finish The Lord of the Rings. Okay, so.
Anyway. Okay, God. Anyway, I'll tell you more
But we
about the tree.
digress.
I'll tell you more about the tree. But anyway, at the time, I was also, the day before, I read A Course in Miracles. Oh, and somebody sent me, I don't even know who, this week I got a present of I think it's Vajrayana, part 10 of a series of the Dalai Lama's wonderful books. And it's part 10, and it's like for adepts. And I opened it up, and of course I'm not going to understand what they're saying. And they said, we're not going to have to explain all the terms we're using because you've got all those in the first 9 volumes. And this book is beautiful. It has a Buddha on a medicine Buddha on the front of the cover. So I'm having to read a lesser, more simple Dalai Lama book that I have, and I haven't read, just about the opening your heart chakra kind of thing. So anyway, I'm reading that first and hoping that will help me because I know nothing. But I also read books that people give me, and I also read. We're reading The Wake World now from Crowley's Wake World, and I'm reading Course in Miracles, which I'm tired of apologizing that I read it, but I read it with a thalamic eye, and it doesn't seem to hurt me. And if it is hurting me, I don't. It's too late.
And the bow saw?
Well, the bow saw, yes.
Okay.
This comes because because this whole story is about like an affirmation. They have like lessons, but they're kind of like affirmations. And here's the one I'm going on for this whole story. There's nothing to fear. Everyone and everything I see. And I'm wanting you to do this today and try to do it as often as possible because you will be shocked. There's nothing to fear. Everyone and everything I see will lean toward me to bless me. And oh God, talk about too much coffee and optimism and Pollyanna. Well, I do, Anyway, but it's something to practice because and observe about what kind of a cycle that it starts. Anyway, so okay, here it goes. I'm writing this. I must have done this yesterday, which is not yesterday anymore. Yesterday, I wrote this when Lon was not home. Yesterday, when I was finished taking down an 8-foot dead branch that was hanging over wires on one side and flower pots underneath, and believe me, I only had 1 rope. So after I bow sawed this branch and hacked at it, and it was mostly loose and going to fall, I realized that when I went over to the other ladder, I had to be at 2 ladders at once, kind of, and then climb in the middle of the tree, like even. because it's like a multi-trunked plant. Anyway, that goes up really high. That I had to be in 2 places at once, and I only had 1 rope. So as I got it looser and tried to pull it through to the opposite side of the tree so it wouldn't fall on the wires, I had to make sure it didn't fall on all the pots underneath, or on me, or on the rose bushes on the way on the far side. So anyway, it was really complicated, and I didn't know how to do it. Once I got it cut, I went, oh my God, I'm helpless. I can't leave it there. I can't possibly leave it there. It'll fall. It will fall on the wires. I had stupidly cut it first, not knowing what to do next. And I was, for want of a better word, praying, guide thou my hand, give me an idea. And somehow, I don't know how, with the 2 ladders, I must have had 8 arms, I untied one of the ropes and just said, you're not going to fall. And it was pretty much 99% cut off. You're not going to fall. I'm going to untie this 1 wire and put it on a different branch. And I went over and slowly would pull on it, and the branch started leaning. And pull on it, and the branch started leaning. But I had to hold up the slack, and it was heavy too, because the more I pulled, the more it went more toward the center of the tree. So it was safe from the wires, but it was God knows what was going to happen when it actually fell off the stump. I pulled and pulled and pulled and kept pulling until the rope kept getting closer and closer, and finally it flipped out the bottom, knocked over one of the ladder that I was not standing on.
Oh, wow.
Fell through the pots, didn't break anything, and not only that, but the branch laid sort of halfway horizontally through the tree, and the top part was still in the other branches, so nothing got crashed on, and I got to eventually pull it out slowly, cut it up in pieces, and haul it off to the neighbor. So that's why, but I'm saying I was like totally not in charge of all this. It felt miraculous. And it took me about 2 hours, by the way. This was not and it was using all my strength. And
your Paula Bunyan.
Oh, anyway, I'm going to read anyway.
Okay.
Okay, now, when I was taking down the pots underneath, I thought lumberjacks must be very close to God, because I was praying every minute that I could hatchet and saw and pull with a rope back through the tree and not let it land on the wires or the pots or me. Anyway, after a couple of hours, and imagining my Swedish relatives were lumberjacks and ministers.
That's right.
I did it. I don't know. But it was so impossible. I mean, it really was
a miracle.
It was a miracle. Because I had thrown the rope up through the Y in the branch at the top, because I saw real tree pruners put this weighted rope through thing so they could pull at it. So one of them could pull at it while the other was sawing. Well, I was both people, so anyway. So I really didn't feel like I did it alone. So I was so grateful, you know. Oh, thank you. Whatever. Whatever. And while carrying the chopped up branches, because I had to chop them up, to the garden, the garden waste bin, which was at the street, because I must have done this on a Thursday, and that's when they come Friday morning. So I was filling up the waste bin, and plus more. I saved the big one to make the biggest one, just, you know, in case I ever have to make a log cabin. I was taking the branches out to the front, to the trash can. I noticed my neighbor across the street. Now, she's a plant lady. She actually has a plant business, and she was busy deadheading some pink camellias from a very tall tree shrub, and she couldn't reach the top half at all. So I went into my rat shed and got a, well, they live in,
we call it a rat shed.
Well, because they live in the back half of it.
Yes.
Shed in the winter because it's cold.
They're quite polite.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, and got my long arm pruner and offered to help her. And I was more high than tired, although I just done a whole bunch of stuff that was impossible physically for me to do. because of my accomplishment. And the deadheading was fun because I like deadheading plants, and she likes doing it too. Now, she's a true neighborhood bliss bomb. And when she smiled and thanked me, I actually got like a chill and felt actually blessed. And I thought of the affirmation that I read the day before about everyone and everything leans toward me to bless me. And I thought, oh, she just blessed me. After I did something for her, though. So the cycle was like,
right.
When you do something, something comes back, and it comes back right away. And on my Saturday, then the next day, on my Saturday, I was still high the next day. My Saturday morning, I don't want to forget how to ride a bike. I ride about an hour long back and forth through the neighborhood. Someone had put out a box of free lemons and grapefruit and oranges with a sign, take some. And because I never have to buy that kind of stuff in the winter around here usually, because everybody has too much of it.
That is a plus for Sacramento, yeah.
Yeah, because they haven't chopped out all their trees yet. And I took some and I mentally thanked them and remembered the affirmation that just on my bike ride somebody's put that out. And so I thanked them. And then I got back on my bike ride, and before I got home, I was blessed by some wealthy homeowners that had put out hundreds of these beautiful, their whole front yard in different patches. It looked like a greeting card, actually. Golden and red tulips in their front yard, and they were all blooming at once. And there was then I was out early because Lon wasn't home. The 9:30 morning sun shining right on these golden red and orange tulips. Hundreds of them in their trees and in their little bed. It was very beautiful. And so I stopped and stared. I had to get off my bike for a minute. I had to stop my bike after I got to the intersection because you couldn't pass it up just standing at it. And I thanked them mentally, because what do you do, and then I thought, well, that was everyone and everything, everywhere all the time is bending toward me to bless me, because
even the tulips.
Yeah. And then, from a dark, then there was a vision as I turned around on my way back. I had a vision. Actually, it was a live thing, but it was like a vision of a dark brown, cream, black, and orange calico cat sauntered slowly like a runway model down its porch steps so that I could gasp. All I could do was gasp blissfully. Cat. Because I miss cat anyway. But it was the most beautiful cat. It was actually a vision, and I think it knew it. Anyway. Well, it snowballs. And when I got home, you say, well, they're just vision, they're just nothing. But these blessings, when I got back home, I ate an orange, a fragrant, drippy orange over the sink, and I was positive of that blessing because I could see it, smell it, taste it, feel it, and hear it. The sound of me slurping the juice was a blessing, and I was grateful. It snowballs. You're blessed. You're grateful. You're blessed. You're grateful. Endlessly. There are blessings out there, just what you need, suited to your taste, waiting for you in unexpected places. When and where you really need them. It's a circle of giving and getting. It's important to just notice it, and it causes it to happen. All you have to do is notice it, and it causes. And there was the next day at Trader Joe's. I went to Trader Joe's, and it was raining, and I had put it wasn't raining quite enough. It was just getting ready to rain, and I had rolled up just a Sprouts plastic bag in my regular Trader Joe's bag in case it started to rain harder for the way home. And there was a nice woman all loading up her bicycle at the Trader Joe's thing. And for some reason, we were talking just a few minutes, and she said, do you happen to have a plastic bag? because she had obviously a longer way to go home than I did. And I didn't, for some reason, think a second that it was started to rain. I just didn't even say a word. I went into my bag and got out this plastic bag for her, and she was so happy that it made me happier than her to give it to her. So it's just and it was all this was nothing and almost all free, you know. It's just anyway. So you might start feeling that the universe is your oyster. So swallow it whole. You might feel even blessed. In fact, you might feel even a little blissed once you start noticing the cycle. So just try. All you have to do is remember it. Just notice it.
And it creates a feedback.
It creates a feedback.
Yeah.
Just noticing. So that's my rambling story. I took up all of Lon's class, and Lon's kind of looking like, oh, God.
Oh, no.
He's looking like, is it ever going to stop? I have stopped. I have to go shop.
I don't think we've recorded. Can you let me start again? You can do it again, dear.
He's the cruelest man on earth.
Oh, shit, we haven't been recording. Okay, thank you, dear.
Because things like that have happened, I would care less.
Yes, you were unattached.
No, I'm not unattached, but you know.
No, I'm unattached. That's who's
You're
unattached.
not unattached. You don't care. There's a difference between unattached and not caring. There's a difference between being not attached and not caring.
Well, I guess that tells me.
I guess it does.
Okay, tell it to Buddha. Okay, thank you, dear. That is, and this is
I'm feeling Pollyanna-y.
Okay.
As it said in the Wake world, just be glad. It's glad.
Just be glad is glad. Okay, I'm turning it around without trying to stop it. Very good. I only have a few little things to say because it is...
Because I took so long.
Because there's nothing left to say.
Oh, God.
Actually.
I apologize, but I didn't say anything hardly at all last week because I was too...
That's right.
Too
You were too burned out. Okay. I'll be in just a minute. Try to remember the bathroom key number.
You know they don't tell you anymore.
I know.
They don't trust you. Even me with my innocent face.
Okay.
Well, I do wear a mask in there. So
Anyway.
I look suspicious.
Wasn't that nice? Wasn't that nice? And she's not exaggerating. That tree branch was a major piece of tree surgery, and there were electrical wires and all sorts of other things that it was just going to, with all the wind we've been having, that was just going to be a terribly dangerous thing. But she works wonders with just hand saws and extension saws and no power tools whatsoever. Anyway, we are in the midst of the advent, at least, of the high holy days of Thelema, and I've been reading things from the equinox of the gods, Crowley's own diaries on the matter, and we have to keep in mind that the equinox of the gods material was pieced together by Crowley years after the event, and it falls the burden of actually putting together a good chronology of events. Falls to more modern scholars who put his calendar together, complete with things that he's written in other places, to actually get a clear idea of the circumstances surrounding the obviously almost miraculous chain of events that went into the supreme invocation of Horus and the writing of the Book of the Law. And one of those scholars I quoted from him yesterday was David Allen Hulse, who is a fabulous Kabbalist and scholar in his own right. And I was reading from, let's see if it's around here someplace, from his marvelous book, Genesis of the Book of the Law. And even though for years, decades, I've been familiar with the chronology of events leading up to the writing of the Book of the Law and the changing of the age, if you will. And David has put many things in perspective that he's helped me connect many dots, okay, for which I'm very, very grateful. One of the series of dots is that Aleister Crowley and his wife Rose, his new wife Rose, in November of, I believe is November of 1903, were honeymooning in Cairo. This is an earlier visit to Cairo, and they did spend a night in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. Crowley did an invocation of Thoth there. He'd sort of given up magic, but for some reason the environment sort of, and he wanted to show Rose how to do ceremonial magic. Plus the fact that it appears that they made love in the king's chamber, and at least in the back of Crowley's mind, it was to incarnate, okay, something very magical in that environment of the Great Pyramid, to in a sense invoke a spiritual force. She did conceive in the at that, or at least what we're able to ascertain. And she was already 5 months pregnant in February, late February of 1904, and they decided to go back to Cairo and sort of spend the rest of her pregnancy term in a more warm environment and do more magic. And so that made me rethink many of the references that Rose was making as she was falling into these trances about the child. It's all about the child. And I've learned from observation of Constance's pregnancy and the birth of our son that there's big magic going on. There's big human woman magic going on in the term of pregnancy that Constance literally transformed into an awesome spiritual being during the pregnancy, and that there really is something incredibly or potentially creative in that kind of form of sex magic. Alexander the Great's mother, said that it wasn't King Philip that made her pregnant. It was Zeus, But be that as it may, I'm just going to follow along the calendar here. Now, March 16th, a couple of days ago, they began the invocation, Iao, it says. Okay. Then on the 17th, it said, Thoth appears. Then on the 18th, he writes, told to invoke Hur as sun, S-U-N. He just had a little symbol of the sun. By new way, told to invoke Hur as the sun by a new way. Now, Hur, Horus, okay, has many attributes that are could be attributed to Mars, or the martial aspect in his active kind of violent power. And Crowley had more or less in his magical career, at least recently, kind of snubbed working with Horus, thinking or focusing on this martial aspect, which at the time he considered sort of the pet god of MacGregor Mathers. MacGregor Mathers is a big Mars guy. So in a way, he'd been snubbing, okay, and that's one of the reasons that he started to get interested with what Rose was saying. Say, he's mad at you. You've neglected him, and but anyway, so there is another section, the Book of Results, and I'll read the Book of Results for yesterday and today. On the 17th, she says, it's all about the child, also all Osiris. Note the cynic and skeptic tone of this entry. How different it appears in the light of 418. Now 418, or Liber 418, is the vision and the voice, about 10 years later. Thoth invoked with great success, indwells us. Now remember, there was a Thoth invocation 5 months earlier. Well, yeah, 5 months earlier in the King's Chamber. Thoth invoked with great success, indwells us. Yes, and this is parenthetical. Crowley added parenthetical, perhaps even years later. Yes, but what happened? Question. Frater P has no sort of idea. Oh, that's very helpful. Okay, the 18th. Today. Revealed that the writer was Horus, whom I had offended and ought to invoke. The ritual revealed in skeleton. Promise of success on Saturday or Sunday, and of samadhi. Okay, here's a parenthetical note. Is this waiter another sneer? We are uncertain. Okay, now Rose came up with a ritual. Okay, the revealing of the ritual by W, that's Urada, that's her, the seer, consisted chiefly in a prohibition of all formula hitherto used, as will be seen from the printed text below. In other words, she came up with a ritual that just was just crazy. Yeah. If you were looking at sort of standard Golden Dawn procedure for a proper ritual of invoking ritual of a god. It was probably on this day that P, that's Crowley, cross-examined her about Horus. Only the striking character of her identification of the god surely would have made him trouble to obey her. He remembers that he only agreed to obey her in order to show how silly she was, and he taunted her that, quote, nothing could happen if you broke all the rules. Okay. Here, therefore, we insert a short note by Frater P. how Rose knew Rahur Kuit. Force and fire. I asked her to describe his moral qualities. She said, force and fire. I asked her to describe the conditions caused by him. This light is quite unmistakable and unique, but of course her words, though fairly descriptive of it, might equally apply to some others. So he asked her to describe the conditions caused by him. Deep blue light. I asked her to pick out his name from a list of 10 dashed off haphazardly. Horus, she answered. Recognize his figure when shown. Okay, so he showed her a figure. This refers to the striking scene in the Bulak Museum, which will be dealt with in detail. In other words, they took her to the museum, picked out his stele of Nakansu, which is Horus's enthroned. She knew his past relations with the god, and how he took his place in the Golden Dawn Temple, how he had never once invoked him. He asked her who his enemy was, and she said the forces of the Nile. Hell yes. She didn't know any Egyptology, he adds. She knew his lineal figure and color, which is a 1 in 84 chance. She knew his place in the temple. She knew his weapons from a list of 6. She knew his planetary nature from a list of 7. She knew his number from a list of 10. She picked him out of 5 indifferent arbitrary symbols. Then she picked him out of 3 indifferent and arbitrary symbols. Okay. Well, he goes on to say, one slip, and Frater P. would have sent her to the devil, and that slip was not made. Calculate the odds. We cannot find a mathematical expression for tests 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, but the other 7 tests give us a 1 in 21,168,000 chance of her getting all of those right. 21 million to 1 against her getting through the even half of the ordeal. Okay, he was very insistent on that. And when she took to the was taken to the Bulak Museum, she picked his stele. It just happened to be stele exhibit number 666. Then he goes on in the Equinox of the Gods to describe the nature of the stele, or the details of the stele of revealing. I'm just going to read briefly what our friend David Allen Hulse has said about March 18th. March 18th, Crowley invokes the sylphs for a 3rd time, with no visual manifestation occurring for Rose. Instead, Rose, falling back into her trance, revealed to Crowley that he who was waiting was Horus, whom Crowley had offended not to invoke. This amuses Crowley, so he tests her validity of Rose's occult transmissions by devising 12 different Kabbalistic texts to determine the true nature of the god or goddesses communicating through Rose, who had no background in magic, mysticism, or the occult. These tests question such as what is the appropriate number, color, planet, etc., of which Rose's correct response would be 5 red Mars, etc. Rose answers all 12 questions, consistently revealing one god and one god alone, the Egyptian god Horus, as she had previously stated. And then he reminds us the odds of success were calculated by Crowley at 1 in 21,168,000. Rose instructs Crowley how to invoke Horus. And I love David's summation of this. The requirements seem incorrect by Crowley's own magical knowledge, but Rose, in her inspired state, commands that not a single detail be altered. Among other requirements, a bowl of bull's blood and a sword must be on the altar during the magical invocation of Horus. If followed to the letter, she predicts success on the following Saturday or Sunday, March 19th or 20th. 20th, okay. She then informs Crowley that if he has any magical aspirations left at all, it is to attain samadhi. And he says, or enlightenment, because Rose's understanding of samadhi would probably be generalized as Crowley's own illumination. Okay. Crowley, at one point of testing Rose, enters the Bulaq Museum of Egyptology that's close to their rented flat in Cairo. Crowley asks Rose to identify the communicating god or goddess that's been obsessing Urata for the last 3 days of their honeymoon by some artifact never seen before by either of them in the museum. Immediately, Rose runs past many images of Horus, which Crowley silently notes with glee, for he still does not believe that Rose's spirit communications are valid. She then leads Crowley upstairs to an exhibit case deep in the museum, which shows a rare image of Horus as the hawk-headed Ra-Hur-Kuit, painted on a wooden stele dating from the 26th dynasty. The stele clearly depicts 3 speakers, the 3 chapters composing the Book of the Law as Nuit, Hadith, Ra-Hur-Kuit. It is also contains the priest, prince, and prophet Ankh-Afnakansu, who is seen as the scribe to the gods, prefiguring Crowley's own role in receiving the contents of the Book of the Law through these 3 Egyptian god forms. To Crowley's great surprise, this exact exhibit number is 666, Crowley's own personal magical number, aligning his magic with the beast of Revelations. This confirms Kabbalistically to Crowley that Rose's own communicators are real and must have a special message of great importance that Rose has been trying to give to Crowley these last 3 days. For Rose is now working as Crowley's liaison to the gods. And that's David's wonderful summation of March, the events of March 18th, 1904. Anyway, we've really gone over today, and but Constance's story was priceless, and I'm so glad. Yes, whenever I used to travel a lot, okay, and I would always come back. Like once I came back from, I guess I was gone like 3 weeks or something in China, and she had completely laid a sidewalk or huge, heavy stepping stones in the patio, and she had to take a pickaxe and completely level the area of the backyard garden. And she did it, and it was like 105 degrees every day, and she just did it by herself. She's an amazing character. Anyway, that's it for today. There's more excitement in the high holy days of Thelema that we'll talk about tomorrow. So until then, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.